Hello and welcome. You are watching Property Hotline with me, Kavita Krishnan. And today we are answering all your questions on buying, selling and investing in real estate. With me is Mudassir Zaidi. He is a managing partner at SNZ Business Essentials. Mudassir, welcome to the show. And let's get started. We have a question that's coming through email. Mukund writes in and he wants to know about a project on Ghodbandar Road. The project is called Raj Tattva. And he says that this property would be used for his end use. He's looking for a 4 BHK flat in this project. He also wants advice on other options in the same market, which will be ready for possession by 2018, within the same price bracket and of course with a similar configuration. He also wants to know your opinion on this particular developer. What would you have to say?
I think he's shortlisted a pretty decent option. Raj Tattva of Rajesh Life Spaces is a pretty decent project. Rajesh Life Spaces is a respected developer having projects across Mumbai in the central suburbs, western suburbs, as well as recently they've announced a project in South Mumbai as well. And in fact, very recently they've been funded by private equity fund promoted NBFC as well. So they've got a decent track record in the market. Ghodbandar Road is one area in Thane which is seeing a lot of investments in the last few years, and a lot of new projects have come in. This particular project is also on that road, and it is at a pretty decent location as well. In fact, a 4 BHK here would really cost upwards of 3 crores. Because the project is roughly quoting at roughly about just under 10,000 rupees a square feet. Super built up is about 3,100 square feet, and carpet is roughly about 1,900 square feet. There are subvention plans available with the developer as well. My sense is for a 4 BHK there are not too many other options available. Most other projects generally have 1 to 3 BHKs available. This is the only one which has 4 BHK in that exact vicinity. So my sense is he should consider it. I'm sure if he's looking at it from a point of view of staying here, this is at a decent level of completion as well. Hopefully by December 2017 he should get possession as well. He should consider this. I don't think for a 4 BHK there are other options available in the immediate vicinity.
Right, not too many options for 4 BHKs, and look at the prices over there. Like Mudassir said, this project is quoting a little under 10,000 rupees per square foot, and the prices on Ghodbandar Road are averaging around 9,651 rupees per square foot, which means your project in that sense is quite fairly priced for this particular market. Very quickly also, Mudassir, you mentioned that there are subvention plans available. But given the condition of the market that we are in at the moment, where real estate in effect is kind of recovering from a slowdown, and then that's when it was hit by the demonetization bombshell, would you really advise buyers to go in for interest subvention plans at this moment?
See, developers which are properly funded and having a decent track record of deliveries, etc., shouldn't see a problem. In fact, with subvention plans, the developer does get funding at a decent, at decent stages from the owner as well as from the bank who is funding it. So there are no upfront funding available from the banks. Banks give them at every stage that they have proposed. So it's better for the developer as well as for the consumer to look at it. However, there are certain things that need to be looked at, and once somebody gets into a subvention plan, they should be aware of what they're getting into. One is that subvention plan does mean that the consumer or the buyer is actually taking a loan on his name. It's not a deferred payment plan where if you don't get delivery, there is no liability on you. The liability is on the buyer. That's one. Secondly, one has to check whether the cost of the subvention plan is being borne by the developer or the buyer, or is spread between the two. That shouldn't be totally passed on to the buyer. I'm sure either the developer should take it in today's market because there is a huge slowdown to spur sales, or they should have some kind of a sharing between the two, where the developer takes some cost and the buyer takes some cost of it.
And the other thing, of course, that all our viewers need to remember when they get into interest subvention plans, which, like we keep repeating on this channel, is a very, very risky thing to do, is also that, like Mudassir just pointed out, the liability is on you. What it essentially means is that, God forbid, the project gets delayed for whatsoever reason, and the developer stops paying the installments. In that case, you are the one who's liable for the installments not being paid. It will affect your CIBIL score, and it will affect your capability to get your credibility, in fact, to get, and that will affect whether or not you will get a loan and at what rate of interest you will get a loan in future. So that is something that you need to keep in mind before you get into these subvention plans. And of course, like we keep saying on the channel, ensure that you get the agreement vetted by a lawyer. That'll so that you can at least safeguard your rights when you are getting into plans like these. We have Faisal Merchant, who sent in 2 questions, Mudassir. Now he wants to know if it is a good time to buy a property in Dronagiri, JNPT or Taloja. He says this is for a salaried person working in South Mumbai. That is question number 1. Question 2 is, what is the best place in South Mumbai between Bandra to CST with a budget of 35 to 40 lakh rupees for a 1 BHK flat? So let's break it up. Let's tackle Navi Mumbai first. He talks about Dronagiri and Taloja. What is your outlook on these markets? Good time to buy into these markets?
See, I'll answer it in 2 levels. One is at a general level, whether it is a good time to buy, and secondly, whether it is a good time to buy in Navi Mumbai. As a general, I would say I think it's a buyer's market already. The market has been in a slowdown mode for the last 3-4 years. As we mentioned earlier, the bombshells of demonetization hit the market, as well as the prospective Benami Property Act, which is going to come in soon as well. So all this will have an effect on the sentiment of the market, at least. Developers might argue and say that the most part of the market, especially for example Navi Mumbai or some of the suburban markets in Mumbai, all are nearer to maybe 1 crore and a half, and therefore most of the buyers are largely salaried, or they take loans for this, and it's not going to affect them. But it does affect the overall sentiment. In whatever you say, it does affect the sentiment, and people are in a wait and watch mode currently. So in today's times, my sense is, if somebody or a developer or if you're getting a resale deal at a very, very good price, you should go for it. But my opinion is that buyers should wait for some time. There should not be any hurry to invest at the moment. Wait for a good deal. If a developer gives it to you, great, go for it now. But my sense is there are better times to come.
Okay, so there are better times to come, so you would do better to wait out the market, is what you're saying.
Correct. If I come to the second part of the question, which was specifically Navi Mumbai, I think Navi Mumbai is a great market in terms of infrastructure. It is reasonably planned, well connected with the rest of Mumbai. There are a lot of economic activities which are coming up. The entire Trans-Thane belt is quite good. A lot of IT related developments coming up there. So therefore economic activity is going to be quite active there. Secondly, infrastructure projects coming up which are going to help the market. The one big one being the airport. So that is something which will which will spur a lot of ancillary activities around the airport and possibly help demand in Navi Mumbai. The other is the rail connectivity, the new metro lines, etc., which are being planned. All of them will also help. So my sense is Navi Mumbai is definitely an area one should look at very actively. Thirdly, from a point of view of South Mumbai, the third part of the question was 35 to 40 lakhs. I would really be difficult for anybody to really to get any reasonable kind of properties in that kind of a budget. I'm sure some part of South Mumbai is where there are old maybe buildings where there are tenanted properties, or there are slightly dilapidated properties, older properties. Maybe there might be some deals available there. But I would really, wouldn't think that people, unless you're really staying in that area and you really want to continue staying there and you don't want to move out and that's the only option available, then maybe you might get something in about 40 odd lakhs, very, very small one, not even 1 BHK, but maybe one room, kitchen kind of, apartments available. But I wouldn't really suggest people who are staying away from that part of Mumbai, maybe in Navi Mumbai, would really want to get into that kind of area where there is amazing, congestion and really difficult conditions to really stay. So unless you're really used to staying there in those areas, it doesn't make sense.
Better off to stay in Navi Mumbai. The other thing, of course, he talks about Dronagiri, JNPT and Taloja. I'm looking at the choices that he's really come up with. Now, we know that Dronagiri is essentially very close to where the airport is going to come up. Then he talks about Taloja and JNPT. Among the three markets, which would really be your pick? Because Taloja seems to be the only one where there is substantial development of any kind right now.
Correct. You're right. So options would largely be available towards Taloja and surrounding areas. There wouldn't be too much around Dronagiri and JNPT at the moment, and so I think really it is Taloja that you should consider, or maybe areas like Olve and and surrounding areas that could be options around near Taloja as well.
Right. So if you are looking at a budget of 35 to 40 lakh rupees, I know you sent in two different questions, but I'm assuming that you are looking with the same budget. In that case, you're better off looking in Navi Mumbai, and Taloja would be the pick that Mudassir is recommending for you to invest into or buy into. Question from Mukesh Singh from Delhi now. He says that he's looking to buy a 2 BHK in Bharatiya City in Thanisandra, Bengaluru. Now, Mukesh also wants to know if there are any issues with the project. Should he go ahead with this particular deal? What would you say, Mudassir? This is a fairly large township project. Should he get into it right at this point in time?
No, I think it's a fairly decent project, Bharatiya City, and they basically sell it under Niku Homes as a brand. It's a fairly decent group. They're not a regular real estate developer. They've got into development in the last few years. They've been into, their background has been into apparels, etc. But the management is pretty decently strong, and what they've built and what they're wanting to build in Thanisandra is pretty decent. They have about 125 acres of land, and they're developing a township with fairly decent amenities out there. Plus, Thanisandra as a location is also a pretty decently developing location. In fact, that's one area that I feel would really outshine in Bangalore. So, from a point of view of location and the from the point of view of developer and project, I think it's a positive. There are for 2 BHKs about 1160 to about 1180 square feet. And you get the apartment in roughly about 51 lakh rupees onwards. So overall a decent option to look at. One can consider it.
You mentioned that Thanisandra is a location which you expect to shine going forward. Why do you say so? What are the economic drivers in this particular market, and what kind of growth would you expect over a 5-year period?
See, overall, this particular belt is there are a number of projects coming up here. This is where a lot of interest is coming in from developers as well as from investors. My sense is, from a point of view of economic activity, it's not too far away from ORR, so accessibility to IT and IT related projects is going to be quite decent. Infrastructure is decent, it's a settled area. So I think overall, from that point of view, there will be interest towards this side. From a return point of view, at the moment is very, very difficult to really give any specific numbers. But I would really say that compared to the city average, over a 5-year period, I would easily assume in the range of about 40 to 50% in 5 years should be decent. As I said, in today's times, very, very difficult to really give any very, very accurate predictions. We don't know what other bombshells are waiting to happen. But I would say about 40 to 50% at least in the next 4-5 years should be possible.
And that really is decent growth. And just a bit about the prices in this particular market. Prices are averaging around 5,178 rupees per square foot in Tanisandra. The lower range, of course, homes are priced between 4,080 rupees per square foot on an average, and it goes on to around 6,500 rupees. Now, that is the price bracket that you should be looking at if you're interested in the Tanisandra market. Of course, like Mudassir said, quite attractive growth expectations over there, 40 to 50% over a 5-year period. A question from Sneha Revankar now, and this is also a Bengaluru question, Mudassir. She wants to know the future prospect of the Kanakashri Housing Society in Kannuru in Bengaluru. Kannuru is not a market that a lot of people write into us asking about. Can you tell us a bit about the market before we talk about this particular project?
See, this is an area which is towards the airport. It lies adjacent to State Highway 104, and it connects to the rest of Bangalore, via Nandi Hills and Devanhalli. In fact, it is near to the airport, and therefore it's one of the alternate routes from Bangalore, from central part of Bangalore to the airport. And it's a very short distance away from the airport itself. So overall, the northern part of Bangalore has seen decent interest coming in. There are areas like Yelahanka, etc., which are quite actively discussed. So this is not too far away from there. So my sense is a decent area to look at. Location has decent social infrastructure in terms of educational institutes. There is KNS Institute of Technology, Karnataka College of Pharmacy, ICICI Manipal School of Banking and Finance, etc. Plus other social infrastructure like the banks, ATMs, hospital markets are all available out there. So my sense is a decent area to look at, and the society Kanakashri being in that area can be looked at quite reasonably.
So there you go, decent locality to look at, and makes sense to buy into a property. Of course, you will need to check if all the papers, etc., are in order. Bit of an outlier there, but it is in the North Bengaluru growth corridor, which means it will, of course, benefit from whatever growth comes to that particular belt. Suhas Patil now sends in a query through email. He says he's looking for a ready-to-move-in flat, or one that will be ready in a couple of months. A 2 BHK apartment, preferably in Pune. He's looking at Wakad, Baner or Ravet. His budget is 60 to 65 lakh rupees. He wants us to suggest some suitable projects in these particular locations. He also has another question. He wants to know if it is advisable to buy an apartment right now after demonetization, or should he wait for the rates to come down? Mudassir, I was waiting for this question because I knew it would come. And in fact, this is something a lot of viewers have been writing in and asking us over the past couple of weeks. Let's tackle the demonetization one first. What should buyers do in this market?
Yeah. See, I think I've partly answered that question when I was talking about Navi Mumbai earlier. But overall, on a general level, demonetization and the Benami Property Act has added to the issues or to the buyer or demand issues that the industry was facing. The RERA Act is also another aspect which will come in. We need to see the impact of that happening as well. So there are positives, there are negatives at the moment. So on the positive sides, RERA and GST will possibly help the industry in terms of growth rates, as well as bringing some level of corporate governance through the act of law, which will bring about credibility. On the other hand, demonetization and Benami Property Act, etc., are going to affect the sentiment of the market. So how these factors interplay and bring and impact the market, we will have to wait and watch. However, it is weighing on the sector. People, in the first month and a half of demonetization, in fact, actually helped the industry, because there was a lot of people waiting on the sidelines to invest. Many of them had cash to invest, right. And we saw developers, or we've heard of developers actually doing brisk business during that time. However, post 30th December, which was the timeline for putting in the old notes, we've seen that people have now turned into a wait and watch mode, and I don't expect that to really change for some time, till the time maybe developers start giving some very decent right. Deals to really make people
what should a buyer do in this market? What should a buyer do in this market? What should a buyer do in this market? Wait, or should they
on
go
a general level, my sense is that people. So on a general level, I would say that people should wait and watch unless they get a very good deal immediately. Otherwise, I don't see people should be in any hurry right now, because it's not that this phase is going to last only for about 2 or 3 months and suddenly rates will start right. rising. So I don't see rates rising immediately. Wait for a good deal, and only if you get a good deal, go for it, or just continue waiting for some more months, because better times are expected, in my opinion.
Okay, so you should ideally be waiting for some more time, though it is in fact a buyer's market. So if you're getting a good deal, go ahead, close that deal. Otherwise, if you're not in too much of a hurry, keep looking, and you would do well to wait for a couple of months. Also, Wakad Baner Ravet is what he's looking at, 60 to 65 lakh rupees budget. Very quickly, does the budget work for these markets? What are the options that he has?
I think, one is that he's looking at something which is ready or very near to possession in a few months. I can possibly, look at suggesting there's a project by Kolte, Kolte Patil, Kolte Western Avenue. About 950 square feet, 2 BHK would be available in that range of 60 to 65 lakhs. This is a 16-acre site with about 11 towers near to Hinjewadi IT Park as well as Sayaji Hotel. So that's something that one can look at. This is very near possession at the moment.
Right, and also those are the prices up for you on the screen. Baner is averaging around 7,176 rupees per square foot. Wakad and Ravet will also be up in a bit. My team did show you the prices of Hinjewadi as well, which is located very close to these markets. There you go, Wakad 6,283 rupees per square foot, and Ravet should be up in a bit. However, do not get spooked by the fact that prices have been going down. The market has been going down. You're seeing a dip of 1 to 2%, but that is what has been the trend across the country. So that should not really spook you. In fact, as a buyer, it's a good thing. It also means that the property is getting a little more cheaper, a little more affordable for you. Moving on, Shreyas Raj, sends us a query. He says that he wants to buy a 1 BHK flat. His budget is 50 lakh rupees, all inclusive. This is for investment, he says. He is looking at Ulve, Dronagiri, Khargar. This is sector 35 to 37 and Taloja. Which location should he choose? Ulve, Dronagiri, Khargar and Taloja. What would you suggest?
Kavita, I've been talking about Ulve as an option for quite some time, and I think in the last couple of years we've seen decent action, buyer demand, as well as developers looking at developing properties here. I still continue to look at Ulve, within that entire area, Ulve as an area that one should look at compared to all the other options that is looked at, which is Dronagiri, Khargar and Taloja. If one has to look at, then Ulve would be still my choice.
Ulve is still your top choice, and it's averaging around 6,014 rupees per square foot. As you can see, prices have gone up 6% over there, and that is also owing to all those announcements that have come in on the airport. 8,184 rupees per square foot is what Khargar is averaging at, up 3%. I would request my team to put up the prices for Taloja as well, and there's a reason I'm bringing it up. Mudassir, just wanted to check with you. He has mentioned Taloja as an option. For someone who's looking at Khargar and the other markets, would you recommend that he looks at Taloja as well? Because Taloja has been benefiting from the spillover of Khargar for quite some time, but it is not that steeply priced. What do you say?
See, Khargar is very, very nicely developed at the moment, in terms of the central, greens, central gardens, etc. that they've come up with, which is a large, eco park out there. Plus the infrastructure is pretty decently developed. The prices, however, have really risen steeply, and therefore, as you rightly said, Taloja is something which has benefited out of that. So anybody who's looked at Khargar would really, not find Taloja up to the mark to the extent if his expectations are what Khargar is to the extent. So that's one thing which Taloja loses out on, that its comparison to Khargar creates a comparison which is slightly unfair. So in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the availability of the type of projects, etc., that are on offer, are not what Khargar is what can be made available in Khargar. So that's one of the reasons why Taloja loses out. But if you compare it with all the other options available, Kamote and various other places, then maybe Taloja is something that can stand out, because the proximity towards Khargar, and then options of reaching back to the centers of Navi Mumbai are far quicker and far easier to reach to. So
right.
Taloja is something that one can consider, but from a point of view of the kind of projects available and the returns expectation, I think Ulve is still a better choice.
Always still the better choice, especially if you look at the returns that you could expect. The airport coming up in the area, of course, will continue to drive up prices. The other thing, Taloja, which we just discussed, prices average around 4,605 rupees per square foot to 5,540 rupees per square foot. So if you are looking at a 50 lakh rupees budget, of course, Khargar may not be within that budget, but Taloja could make up for that budget. With that, we do come to an end of this episode of Property Hotline. Mudassir, thank you very much for coming in and answering all those questions. And just before we leave, a quick programming reminder for all our viewers. If you've bought a home and want to rave about it, or if you want to rant about your experience with a particular real estate company, your channel Magicbricks Now gives you, the home buyer, a platform to do so. The Magicbricks Realty Consumer Awards 2016, we are getting this very, very soon. India's only credible award for the real estate industry, because here you, the home buyer, are both judge and jury. In this survey-based award, you will get to choose the best residential projects in various categories. You will have to rate developers on project delivery, quality, customer service, after-sales service and maintenance. And what's more, we are only considering projects that have an occupancy certificate. So log on to http://consumerawards.mbnow.in and help us choose India's best developers. Make your vote count. Thank you very much for tuning in.
You can watch live TV on our website mbnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magicbricks Now. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magicbricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/Magicbricks Now.